Welcome to Colonie TV, the governmental educational channel for the town of Colonie.
Hello, my name is Noel Gebauer. I'm the PGA Head Professional and Golf Course Manager at Colonie Town Golf Course. I'm excited to take this opportunity to spend some time talking about two of the things that I love. The first of which is the Colonie Town Golf Course. It's a place where I spent a lot of my youth, growing up there, working there as a kid, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to spend my career helping it be successful and giving the Colonie residents a great place to play golf. And the other thing is golf in general, the sport of golf. As a PGA professional, I'm tasked with also making the game of golf grow and making it fun for everybody. So I get to do two of those things with my career, and I'm thrilled to be able to talk about that today. We've also got John Risler here with us today. He's the head golf course superintendent at the Colonie Town Golf Course. Welcome, John.
Thanks for having me, Noel.
Well, thanks for being here. And between the two of us, we try to give you the best playing conditions as possible and the best experience possible at the Colonie Town Golf Course. So we're excited to talk about that today. First of all, we'd like to talk a little bit about the history of Colonie Town Golf Course. In the mid-'60s, there was a situation with golf in the capital region where there were many country clubs but not a lot of opportunities for the middle-class golfer to play golf. There was Albany Municipal Golf Course, Schenectady Municipal Golf Course, and other than that, there weren't a lot of privately owned public golf courses for the average person to be able to play golf. So Colonie Town board member Saul Greenhouse, along with the then supervisor William Sanford, got together and came up with an idea for the town of Colonie to build and operate their own municipal golf course. The population of Colonie was increasing at that time, and also Stanford Golf Course, which was where Mohawk Mall was built, closed in the mid-'60s. So there was definitely an opportunity there for not just the Colonie golfers to be able to play, but also many of the area golfers to have a new golf course to enjoy. This also followed a pattern that was set back in the '30s, when municipal golf really boomed. In the 1930s, with the Great Depression, FDR had the New Deal, which, because of the Works Progress Administration that he had put together, he put many people to work, and many people to work in recreation. They built many golf courses, over 360 golf courses throughout the United States during this time. And again, it was based on a need for affordable golf, and it really saved the sport at that time. And fast forward to the '60s, that's exactly what was happening in our area. We needed more opportunities for more people to play golf, and the town of Colonie stepped up to make that happen. In 1969, the Colonie Golf Course opened. William Mitchell was the architect of what is now our white and blue nines. He also designed Saratoga State Spa Golf Course about a decade earlier. It was a very traditional design, with greens that run from back to front slope, oval shape, round, nothing fancy, very traditional, cut through a woodland. I believe there was 199 acres that they used on that original 18 holes. And it opened to great success in 1969. Fast forward to 1980, again, there was great demand. People were having a difficult time getting tee times. We needed more holes for the Colonie residents to play. So at that time, there was another 9 built, which is now currently our red 9. We color them so we can tell the difference between the 4 9s that we now have. The third 9, which is the red 9, was designed by the Robert Trent Jones Corporation. Roger Rulewich was actually the designer for Robert Trent Jones at the time. Many of you are familiar with them, or with him, because he has also designed Saratoga National Golf Course, in the 90s. He did a great job on the red 9. It's much different than the original 18. The greens are very oblong, a lot of distance control needed to hit those greens. It gives us a nice variety, really, compared to the original 18. So the red 9 was a great addition. It opened in 1982. Now we fast forward again to the late 90s. Same situation occurred. We've got a difficult time for the residents to get tee times, tremendous demand. So we built another 9. That's when the green 9 came about. That was built by Rich Jacobson, who formerly worked for the Jack Nicklaus Corporation. The green 9 presented some different challenges, though. It was built in an area where we had to preserve some space. They're environmentally sensitive areas. I'd like to bring John in at this point and ask, John, at that point when they were building the green, what is that difference and why are those environmental areas so sensitive?
Well, the federal government, there's certain regulations when you go into areas where there's wetlands. If you need to modify certain areas of wetland, you need to create that much and more wetland on the property. And the Lyshkill Creek that runs through the golf course is a classified trout stream through the state. They stock it every year. So there's environmental areas through that 9 that they needed to preserve. And in doing that, it made for some interesting hole layouts.
Absolutely. It is a completely separate 9 as far as strategy and as far as playability than the other 3, which really gives us a neat situation at our golf course because we've got the original 2 9s, which play differently from the 3rd 9 that was built, which play differently from our 4th 9, the green 9 that was built. So it's almost like being at 3 different facilities in one facility. It's a great all of them are championship golf courses. They're a great challenge, and our residents certainly enjoy all 3 designs. At this point, we'd like to talk to John a little bit more because we have him about some of the challenges that he faces in his daily and yearly maintenance of the golf courses. John is a Golf Course Superintendents Association of America superintendent. He's certified. He's also the former president of the Northeast Golf Course Superintendents Association. Very well decorated. He's been at Colonie Golf Course for how many years, John?
I've started my 16th season.
Started his 16th season. Fantastic job for sure. Not only managing the conditions, managing the staff that keeps the golf course in the great shape that it is. First of all, because if you go outside today, we're taping this in February, and it's about 2 degrees outside. So the first thing we'd like to talk about is, and it's a question I get all the time, is what do you do in the wintertime? You work at a golf course, the staff is on. What exactly do you do in the wintertime? So, John, why is the winter an important time for the maintenance of the golf course?
Well, as you know, with 36 holes, there's quite a lot of equipment that's needed to take care of the facility. So the staff is ripping things down, replacing bearings, sharpening equipment, going through engines, and getting everything in shape so that when we start the season, it's ready to go. And other than that, depending on the weather, we do projects outside. We'll do tree removal and we'll do drainage projects as long as we can dig and get in. And there's the ability to do that. We will continually to try to improve on some drainage areas because, as you know, in the summer when we get a lot of rain, the course can get very wet. So the more drainage we can put into the golf course, the better off we'll be down the road.
Yeah, I know the last couple of years the crew has been out there. We've even had help from other members of the Parks Department to come over to help us, do a lot of drainage. It's so important.
Right.
I know the clay soil presents a challenge as well, right?
Right. The roots have a much more difficult time to go down into the clay. It holds moisture well, which is important for plant health. But when it gets wet, it just stays super saturated, and it makes it difficult to get out and mow sometimes. And also with the heavy cart use of the golf course, it makes it difficult for them to go off the paths and things like that.
Yes.
Which is, as you know, a concern after long periods of rain.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I know as we go into the winter, and you hear a lot of the golfers talk as to what they think is going to be a good winter for the golf course, whether it's snow less, whether it's more snow.
Right.
Now, tell me, what do you feel is a good winter for the golf course as far as the conditions?
Well, this year started to set up very well. I mean, we had once the course closed towards the latter part of December, we had some cold days coming in, which is necessary for the grass to acclimate to the winter, and then we got a pretty good substantial snowfall, which would help protect the turf. But unfortunately, we took a lot of rain, and most of that snow melted, but not all of it. And then we had ice, and then we had another snowstorm, and we got into a pattern where we'd have snow, then rain, and we have a lot of ice buildup on some of our low-lying areas on our greens, which can be detrimental for the amount of time that the greens stay under the ice.
What does that actually, does that stop the oxygen from getting down to the grass, or is it a...
Well, actually, there's a couple things that can happen. The grass is still alive and going through its life cycle underneath that ice, and it can produce through its processes some toxic gases to the turf if it's left like that. Also, what will happen too, as the ice melts a little bit, the top of the turf will be saturated, and the plant will actually try to draw some of that water in, and then when it does and it gets down below freezing, the grass plant actually freezes. So the water within the cells of the plant freeze, and it bursts, and you have you'll have death to the plant. So we've been out there over the last couple weeks removing snow. We've been trying to see what we can do to try to get the ice to melt a little bit quicker. We can't just go out there with salt, because that will kill the turf.
Right.
So we're putting down darker colored sands and some of our spray dyes to try to get the sun to maybe warm that area up a little bit more. And once we can get back out there again, we'll go out there with our aerifier with some solid tines to help bust up the ice, get some of that gas to release, but also get the ice off where we can shovel it off so that there's less of that freezing and thawing on the turf. Right,
because fortunately we haven't seen it much at our facility, but I have been to other golf courses where that has been an issue over the winter, and it shows sort of kind of brown dead turf in the spring.
Right. Well, and actually, coming out of the spring, sometimes the greens will look totally healthy, and then because it still has the chlorophyll in the plant, but when the plant starts to come out of dormancy, there's nothing there, so that chlorophyll goes, and then you see so
then it turns brown.
Yeah.
Interesting.
When I was at Pine Brook out in Gloversville, we had that problem every year, that we'd get 4 to 6 inches of ice, and it was a challenge to keep the greens alive, and hopefully because of the health coming into the winter, we may be okay, and the things that we're doing this winter to get the ice off will hopefully be a benefit too. So and we've been improving the quality of the turf on the greens, so hopefully they'll be able to withstand this. But also one thing too is our greens are what they call POA bent. There's 2 different types of turf grass, and the POA annua is the turf that really can't stand the time under the ice. So the more greens that have that, those will be the greens that we see more issues with.
I got you. It's amazing. We're at the mercy of Mother Nature, whether it's in the summer, or, spring, fall, or even in the wintertime.
Right.
As far as our turf health and what the playability and the conditions that will come out within the spring. Now, speaking of the spring, because we are into February and it is getting kind of exciting, the season's around the corner. What do you feel really determines when we can pull the trigger and get the golf course open?
Well, typically I'd like to be able to mow the greens at least twice. It shows that they can withstand the traffic, and And if I'm able to mow them twice, it means that they're actually actively growing too. Because what we don't want to do is put traffic on the crowns of the plants if they're not out of dormancy, so they can protect themselves by putting out more shoot growth. So that's what we typically look for, and that takes place when the frost is out of the ground, because if the frost is still in the ground and the top, say, 1 or 2 inches is still really wet, the traffic on there will make the greens awfully bumpy. When they do dry up, there'll be foot marks and everything else. And then we're just doing a lot of other things in the later part of the spring to correct the problems that we did. So I know golfers are very antsy to get out there in the spring, but we're holding them off so that we're not doing a lot of extra work to make up for the little bit of play that we might get really early on.
Well, I know, I mean, you and I have both been through it where, you know, you get excited and you go to get open possibly in March, and then before you know it, Mother Nature hits us with a snowstorm. And
Right, exactly.
At the beginning of April, and we close back down, and, you know, it's...
Right, and then once you open, it's, you know, you've pulled that trigger, and they're all ready.
The staff is there, and you know,
Right.
and you're good to go. But
Right.
well, hopefully this year we'll have a nice, because we've had a pretty severe winter so far. Well, hopefully we'll have a nice early spring.
Yeah, we're hoping that the greens come through and we're able to get rid of the snow and get out there and get the course cleaned up and get it ready for play. You know, we do also have a couple projects that took place at the end of the fall. You know, there were some golfers still out there, so they know what was going on. But the 2 bathrooms on the white course and the green course. So there's some things that we'll need to do to get those things back in shape, those areas, and but they're definitely going to be an asset to the golf course.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Now, speaking of improvements and moving forward, what do you see as having been improved probably over the last maybe 5 to 10 years, as far as not maybe maintenance procedures or just things that you've been able to do to up the quality of the golf course over that time?
Well, you know, from listening to a lot of the golfers and just from seeing things anecdotally, I think the quality of the fairways have improved tremendously, and that goes back to the drainage work that we've been able to do on some of them, and the types of fertilizers and the maintenance program that we have. You know, obviously, like you said, we're dependent on weather, and last year it got so hot after such a wet spring. I think we had over 16 inches of rain in May.
Yes.
And it just, the turf could just not, they couldn't withstand it. There were disease issues, there was wet wilt, and you know, we also have to watch what we're spending on. There are chemicals that you can kind of maybe go out and treat and prevent that, but they're very expensive, and you know, we're limited to what we can do, and we have to look at the overall whole picture of what we're doing there. So I think we were able to keep the greens, which I think to the golfers are the most important, but you know, as we keep improving turf quality, those stresses become a little less severe. So,
well, I mean, I can tell you just from, you know, people coming into the golf shop and talking about the golf course, the greens have gotten so much better. I know a couple years ago the town purchased for us a few new greens mowers, which really improved the...
No, the quality of cut on those new mowers was had the biggest impact of the way the greens rolled for the golfers. We've also changed our fertilization program a little bit, so the term is spoon feeding. We're giving very little amounts of nitrogen. So not a lot of growth, but enough to keep the plant in a very healthy, you know, growing condition. So little things like that have definitely improved the conditions of the greens.
Absolutely, and it's a great investment. I mean, those mowers, I mean, to improve that condition, to get the positive talk and spin on how well our greens are rolling now, better than they ever have in the history of the golf course, brings in, you know, not just more resident play. A lot of people from out of town come in now to play our golf course, you know, to experience that, and it's a great investment.
No, right, and I think in turn too, it also helps with outings. You know, if there's an outing and there's somebody else out there that played it, you know, maybe instead of having an outing someplace else, well, I think we'll have it at the town. So it's definitely something that, to spend a little bit of extra money on things like that, it will improve the income end in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now, do you find is there anything really unique to our facility as far as maintenance goes that maybe other facilities might not have to either deal with or enjoy, depending on?
Well, I think the the soils that we have at the golf course create quite a challenge. There are other courses in the area that have similar soils, but there's also courses just down the road that have totally different types of soil, and we'll be closed for the day because of the rain, and that course will be open, and the golfers can't understand why. Mm-hmm. So. Plus the fact that the golf course was built in 3 different time periods, the soil and the greens on the white and blue are different from the red, and the green is totally different. So there's some management things that we need to do to, we have to treat each one of those 9s a little bit differently. So it can be a little bit of a challenge, but after 15 years, I think we have it down.
I would definitely say so. No, that's fantastic. Now, while we have you here, one of the things that I've asked some of our frequent patrons is to give me some questions that they have or they have heard other golfers have about our facility, and we'd like to cover them, and answer them here. Some of which will be kind of golf operational, which I can answer, and some of which have to do with the maintenance, which John is here, and he can enlighten us as well on that. And one of the most frequent questions that I will get, especially on the shoulder seasons, the early spring, the late fall, although it's amazing how early in the fall it can happen, are about frost delays. And when a golfer comes out, they make an 8 o'clock tee time in the morning, and they get to the golf course, and I tell them, okay, cool your heels, we can't go anywhere, we've got frost out there. And they'll look at me and say, well, okay, I know I scraped it off my car, but what does that mean? Why can't I go play? So John, what exactly would happen if someone went out and played on frosted ground?
Well, it's very similar to what I was saying about the plant taking in the water. There's water in the plant at all times, and if the plant is just about frozen or has that ice on top of its leaves, when a golfer walks across it, it actually will burst the cell walls. Okay, if it gets down to where they're walking on the crown of the grass, which is where all the growth comes from, you've just killed that plant. So now that plant needs to be regenerated, either by seeding or just over time with the natural process of the grass filling in. So we keep them off until that hazard, we'll call it, is passed. So we want to keep the turf in the best condition possible, because in the spring, if the turf has been damaged, there's just not going to be anything there.
Absolutely, it's amazing the look of it. I've made some mistakes in the past, especially early on, as an assistant pro. I can remember being out putting sponsor signs out for a golf outing. And I had a cart out there. It was very early. It was just at sunup. And when I had gone out, there wasn't any frost. And the frost actually had set in after the sun comes up. Now, that's pretty common, right?
Yes, it is. We'll pull in and, I'll check the weather station on the, there's a weather station on the course, and the temperature will say maybe 37 degrees. But on the north-facing roof of one of our buildings, there'll be frost. So it's, as the sun's coming up, the ground temperature gets a little bit cooler, and then with the moisture in the air, the frost will set in. And we've gone out there actually even mowing, and the guys will notice and will pull right off, and we'll have to wait. It's in the taller grass, like the roughs and things, if we're in there a little bit, because we're not getting down to the crowns, but will cause a little damage. It's not that bad, but on the greens and on the fairway, where it's a shorter cut turf and you're actually bruising or killing the crowns, that's where we have to hold people off.
Yeah, it's actually amazing too, thinking about the difference in the temperature from one side of town to the other. I mean, I'll have people coming from Latham that'll come rolling in, and it might have been 40 in Latham and they didn't have frost that night. Right. And they'll get to the west end of town where the golf course is, and it's 33 and we're covered. Right. It really is amazing coming past that airport.
And there's little microclimates right on the golf course too, where we'll have frost in certain pockets and nothing. And even the greens on the green 9, because they're sand, they seem to hold the frost a lot longer. So, but we've been doing things over the years too. We've been cutting trees around the greens to to get a little more light on the greens, which is critical, which in turn helps for the frost to burn off as soon as the sun hits it.
Okay. No, it's great. It is definitely a pain because we all have our schedules, that we want to try to stick to. Saturday morning, we love to get out on the golf course and get our round in. But, if there's frost out there, the damage that can be done, the story that I told you about me going out and getting stuck out in the frost, I didn't stop.
Right.
And the next day there was just black cart tracks that lasted for 2 months.
Well, another question that I get too with the frost from golfers too is why can't you just water it off? And it gets back to trying to get the plant acclimated to be prepared for the really cold winter months. We want to try to dry the plants down a little bit. We don't want them going in succulent. And then also the extra moisture in the soil will set us up for certain snow mold diseases. So, and then we're using chemicals to combat that. So, whatever we can do to get the frost off without using water is the way we'll do it.
That's a great explanation of why we go through that. Another question we've gotten from some of our regular golfers is what is a USGA handicap? And I'll answer that one. A USGA handicap is an official handicap that a golfer can take anywhere around the world. It's based off of the scores that golfer will shoot or post, as the USGA calls it. An official USGA score that can be posted is any score that is shot by that golfer. It can be in a casual round, it can be in a tournament round, it can be in a league round. As long as USGA rules are followed, that score can be posted and will count toward the handicap. Now, unlike bowling where a bowler gets pins added to the score so that they can compete with, say, a bowler that has a higher average, in golf, a handicap are actually strokes that are taken away from a golfer. Let's say if John and I were playing each other and my handicap was 0, and John, say, would normally shoot around 90 or so for 18 holes. That would give him a handicap of about 18. What would happen is we could play against each other because he would get 18 shots throughout the course of the round taken off of his score. And that would allow us to compete. So golfers of varying skill levels can compete against each other. The handicap itself is the number of shots taken off the score. There's another number that's very important with the USGA, and that's the handicap index. That's the actual number that you take with you from course to course and will determine what your handicap will be at that particular golf course. For example, if you are a 15.4 index, say, you might play to a 15 handicap on our golf course. At the town of Colonie, you might go to Capitol Hills in Albany, and that might translate to a 16 handicap or a 14. Each golf course has a chart that the USGA gives them, which has a conversion table to it, and will tell you when you plug your index in what your handicap will be at each course. And again, that index is created by the scores that you post, takes your best 10 out of the last 20 scores, and creates this index for you so that you can go all over the world and play competitively against anyone of any skill level while using this handicap. And it's great because it allows all different types of matches to happen with all different types of players. And it's the slope system, which is also a USGA creation. What that does, and it's not the angle of the ground. It's the slope system is a number that each golf course is given, which designates the severity of the golf course in terms of how difficult it is. So if a golf course is more difficult, it'll have a higher slope rating. If it's less difficult, it will have a lower slope rating, and that's a number that's entered into this complicated equation that will determine that index. So if I'm shooting 75 at a golf course, it's easier. It's rated a little different than if I shot a 75 on a golf course that's more difficult. So the USGA takes that into account as well. It's a really great system. It's the USGA is the United States Golf Association. It's the national body, ruling body of golf, and it's also facilitated through the New York State Golf Association. And each golf course that's a New York State Golf Association member, as we are at the Colonie Town Golf Course, has a posting station there where you can come in and post your score. And you also don't have to go through a golf course to do that. You can actually do that online at home through the New York State Golf Association website to get yourself a handicap, because when you move on, even if you're a casual golfer, if you are invited to play a tournament, even if it's a fun one, you might get asked, well, what's your handicap? You know, or what's your index? And it's great just to have one. And plus, you can track how you will improve over time, because you'll see your index hopefully come down. You know, and that's always an exciting thing to see. Although it doesn't give you as many shots in the matches and tournaments that you play, it does definitely show that you're improving as a golfer, and that's a great thing. Another question we have is, and we'll throw this one to John, is what determines the daily hole locations? Golfers go out and they'll go out and play a hole, and they'll see the hole on one side of the green one day, and then the next day they'll see it on the other side. And how do you determine where you're going to put the holes on each day?
Well, we try to spread the wear across the green. So if it's in the front right, the ideal thing would be move it as far away of that area as possible. You know, weather will affect that, though, where there's sometimes if the back side of a green is continually wet, where we'll have to keep it, say, in the front quadrant. And, you know, that's not ideal, but sometimes that's the only thing we can do. But it has more to do with spreading the traffic around the greens. But on certain times when we're trying to get speed up play, we'll kind of center the pins in the middle of the greens, and that comes from you know, that'll come down from the pro shop, or if there's a special tournament that's going to be held at the course, we'll try to accommodate them. My philosophy has always been with, you know, for an 18-hole round, that we want to have 6 easy, 6 medium, and then 6 challenging pin positions. And unfortunately, with the town, we do hear this sometimes, is that, you know, that we had 5 holes in a row that were really tough, and that could be because they were playing white to blue, and the last 3 holes on the blue were a little bit tough, and they went to the white. And we have 2 different people cutting the cups, so that's one of our challenges and things like that. But in order for us to get the course prepped, we need to do it in a timely manner. So to have one person just cutting the cups, it wouldn't be possible for us to do that. Right. So it's spread up amongst the staff that's there, and you know, it can get a little bit.
It would definitely, you know, be determined by the 9 rotation that we've got, you
right,
know, and where they go, and it's really interesting with the different 9s that we have, because you know, when you're playing, say, the red 9 or even the green 9, the 2 newer ones, it's almost like a different hole depending on where that pin is.
Right.
You know, the red 9 has holes where, you know, if the pin's on the front right, you have to be thinking from the tee that you want to play, you want to try to play on the one side, so you can maybe down the left side, so that you can get a better angle into that pin, not have to go over as much trouble. And then if it's on the back left, well, the next day you might have to play down the right side.
Exactly.
You know, and that's a great strategic feature of those newer 9s, whereas the white and the blue 9, they're a little bit more traditional. And you know, with the fairway bunkering that we have on the white and blue, really we're just trying to hit the fairway off the tee anywhere, because that's really the challenge of those 2 9s, is how William Mitchell put those fairway bunkers in there. And you know, the pin positions don't matter as much as far
right,
as where they are and their difficulty, also because there isn't a tremendous amount of slope there. But it is neat to have some variety as you go around.
Right. I mean, I think some people think it's the guy that set in the pins that day had a bad night and he's going to get the golfer, but it's that doesn't enter into it. It's more of you know, trying to protect the green. You know, there's you know, one thing I hear a lot too is, you know, the cup is too close to the collar, and there's no rule on how far it is. We try to keep it 3 to 4 paces in, which some of our greens, because of the size, we need as much green as we can, and that gives it an area of the green that a golfer may not see all the time. So that he's playing it, or she's playing a different part of the green. So, and it also spreads the wear out.
Yeah, well, that's it. When you consider the traffic that we have at the golf course, I mean, when we have a busy year, we're approaching 70,000 rounds. with the size of the greens, you can run out of pin positions.
Exactly.
To try to spread that wear out. So to use as much of the green as possible totally makes sense to me. And again, as a golfer, I love the variety. I love making a hole almost played like a completely different hole, given a different pin position. That's a great feature of the sport of golf that maybe a sport like bowling doesn't have, where you're always playing the same lane. It's always the same length. The pins are always in the same spot. In golf, we've got, we can change around where that hole is.
We try to do it with the tee markers as well.
Yes.
If the tee markers are on the right side, and then we move them over to the left side, it's a different angle coming into the fairway. And if we move them back a little bit, person hits pretty much the same distance every time. Well, now going into the green, they may need a different club to get to the green. So
yes,
we hear comments about that too, that they're in the wrong spot and things like that. So we try to keep them relative to where the cup is, and try not to get everything. So that day all the holes are long. We should try to mix them up that way too.
Yeah, and a lot of times the comments that we get too are predetermined by how that golfer might play on that hole. And
Exactly.
I'm guilty of that as a golfer. I'm guilty of that as much as anybody. If I make a double bogey on a hole, that tee was in the wrong spot, and I hated where that hole was.
Right.
So that was a terrible spot. So that's, it's funny how that gets. But yet, if I, make a birdie, it was like, wow, that was a great pin position, and those tees were perfect.
But also moving the tees spreads the wear on the tees as well. So it's not just a playability feature that we're doing that for. It's also, to let that area heal, let the divots. We go out and fill them every morning with sand and seed. So we're trying to give that area a little bit of time to recover. Typically, it takes about 21 days in the summer for those areas to recover. So if we can move them around in 21 different locations, we should never really have areas that get beat up. Unfortunately, some people will move the markers where they want to hit
Yes.
from, and so we'll come out the next morning and say, those markers weren't here when I changed them the other day. So, but it's it is a challenge to get people to understand why we do certain things. It's not a penal or vindictive thing on the guy that's setting the course up that day. It's more trying to keep the course as playable and enjoyable as possible.
Yeah, and managing that turf. as you
Exactly,
said, and
exactly.
making sure that everybody's got good turf to play from, and that kind of leads us to another question that we've gotten from one of our frequent golfers. Is he asked, what age do I need to be to play the senior tees? Now, for those that don't know, the senior tees and the ladies' tees and the men's tees, those are all terms that have been, we're getting farther and farther away from using them, I guess I would say. They're traditional terms used for the tee markers. As they get set up, we have four sets at Colonie Town Golf Course, and the back tees, which are the blue tees, would make the hole play the longest. Traditionally, they were always called the pro tees because that's where all the golf pros would play and the better players. Then the next set of tees are white tees, which traditionally have been called men's tees, but we like to take that moniker off them because some of the better women players will play from back there to make the golf course a little more challenging. When the Futures event used to be, the Futures Tour event used to be at Colonie Town Golf Course, they actually used to play, that's a women's tour, they used to play from where the white tees were. So it's not just for the men, it's for that level of player. The next tee set would be the gold tees, which a lot of our players call the senior tees. But again, shouldn't just be for seniors. It's it gets the golf course to be probably about maybe a little under 6,000 yards, and we'll make it a comfortable place to play for a certain level of golfer. And then the front tees, we try to call them the front tees or the red tees, were traditionally called the women's tees. Well, if you're a brand new golfer, whether you're a man, woman, junior player, senior, that's probably where you should go if you're the most comfortable. The PGA and the USGA actually have an initiative right now called Tee It Forward, and we're trying to get everybody to move up a set of tees because golf is more fun when the golf course plays a little shorter, and also your score better. There's no question about it. So we try to take those traditional names away from those tees because that's really not what they're about. They're about getting the golf course to a certain yardage so that it can be played, properly and more. You have more enjoyment out of that if you're playing from a yardage that you're comfortable with. So as far as the age goes, really it's more determined by maybe how far you hit the ball. If you find that you're losing distance, then please move up a set of tees. That'll kind of get you to the spot that you were maybe 20 years ago when you were younger, and you'll find your ball in the fairway at that same spot. In actual tournaments, you don't get to choose. You're actually designated where you have to play from. And generally, the person that will be setting up the tournament, if there's a rule sheet, it will tell you. It will say, maybe all male players play from, the white tees. Any player over 65, 75 play from the gold tee or the red tee. And it really will depend on that tournament. They'll have made a predetermination as to what tee you should be playing from. But when you're out playing on your own, you're more than welcome to play from any tee marker that's out there, as long as you keep up with the pace of play. And I would suggest playing from a tee marker set where you're having a good time playing. That's for sure. So definitely tee it forward. If you're making more birdies teeing it forward, go ahead and do that. And we spoke to the USGA Handicap system a little while ago, and that's actually set up so you can post a score from those forward tees. You just have to enter it. It's a choice when you go to enter your score into your handicap calculation, and it will be there. So you go through, say I shot 85, but I played it from the gold tees instead of the white today. No problem. Just enter it in as 85 from the gold tees, and that'll calculate it properly with that slope rating, and your handicap will come out the right way. So that's a great question, and really it's about playing from the set of tees that's going to make it the most enjoyable for the player that's playing, for sure. Next question, and this is an interesting one because I think things from what I've heard are changing, and this goes to maintenance. Is healthy grass always green? And I ask that, and I'm sure this question comes from, like when we see, especially in the spring, we see the Masters on TV, and we see multiple shades of green, and everybody thinks that golf course is the most pristine golf course, which it is, but it is green. Right. And in a lot of cases, and I know from just what I've heard that may not always be the case, but what...
it's... A green grass is definitely healthier than brown grass, because brown grass is typically dead. So I guess if you wanted to look at it that way, but if you take a green, for instance, and want to try to match that color green of Augusta, you may get it to the point where it's too succulent, and get it to be more susceptible to some disease things, and there's other ways to get grass green with giving a little iron here and there, but the color isn't really indicative of what the health is. It's how the rate of growth, if it's able to withstand wear, so the greener the grass doesn't mean it's a better playing condition.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was wondering, especially when we get into a situation where if we keep watering it until it's, to make sure that it stays green, does that have anything to do with the root?
Yeah, I mean, we're not watering to keep it green. We're watering to keep it alive. We're watering it so that, typically in the heat of the summer, you'll see us out there watering. A lot of times it's to cool the plant off, because we want to just give it a quick shot of water so that when the water hits it, it evaporates and pulls some of that heat away. So, it's, I've never managed turf to a color. Mm-hmm. There's actually dyes out there now that you can use to they've found that they're taken into the plant, and it has a positive plant health effect on them. So if people see that we're out there spraying dyes and things, it's not because we want it green. It's more because we're getting a benefit with the inner structure of the plant by those dyes. So
Right.
I was at a seminar last winter, and one of the professors from Rutgers said that we're probably going to see at a point where we'll be able to take a color wheel to our local turf supplier and say, we want this color.
Like a paint store.
Like a paint store.
Yeah.
But, it's more of an aesthetic thing, the color, than it is a plant health or even a playability thing. And there are some courses, like you said, like Augusta, where if at the town of Colonie we were to achieve that color green, the grass would probably be a lot longer, a lot more dense. There's just Augusta, unfortunately, is the benchmark that everyone wants to be, but it's just it is just so far out there that.
Yeah, and when you see the professionals in July go overseas, they go to the British Open, and you see them play on turf that's brown or tan, and they're talking about how great the turf is, but yet most of our local golfers will be watching on TV and they'll look at me and says, "Wow, look how terrible shape that golf course is in."
Right.
That place is it looks like all the grass is dead, and you explain to them that no, actually it's not. It's actually great turf.
Right.
It's just a different shade,
Exactly.
but it's definitely alive, and it's and it's fantastic to play off of. Some of the best turf that I've played off of actually wasn't a deep color green. It was kind of almost a little bit of a green tan color. It's nice and firm, great to hit golf shots off of. And so it's interesting. So a lot of times, I think a lot of people think we're striving for something, and it's not the case. As you had said, plant health is really the
Right, and that's ultimately what we strive for. The healthier the plant, the more resilient it's going to be to the game of golf. If you think about it, we're out there every day cutting it with a 2 metal shears slicing across the top of that turf. Then you have people walking across it, dragging their feet, balls hitting it. It goes on. It's under a tremendous amount of stress. So the better the health that we can keep that, the better it's going to be in the long run.
Yep, absolutely. Another question, the final question I've gotten is someone asking me, do I need to always play by the USGA rules when I'm playing? And my answer to that question would be no. If you're playing in a league or if you're playing in a tournament and they're set up to play by the USGA rules, then yes, you do. But if you're just out playing casually, there's a lot of things that you can do to make the game more fun and to keep the pace of play up that maybe aren't following the USGA rules. And as long as you're not looking to post that score for your handicap, it's really okay. If you're a casual player, someone that's just starting, there's some things that you can do to make the game more fun for sure. A great example would be if you're teeing off on a hole and you hit the ball in the woods, and you go out and you go to look for the ball and you can't find it. The USGA rules say that you need to go back to the tee and hit again. You'd be hitting your third shot. If you hit your first in the woods, there's a penalty shot involved, and then you'd be hitting your third shot from the tee. If you're out there playing casually and you look around, there's a group behind you, you don't want to hold them up, you don't want to be held up or hold the people in your group up, it's okay. Go ahead and put a ball down and play it from there. Maybe play your third shot or call it your fourth shot. That's fine. The USGA rules are really set up for tournament golf and for golf when you go to shoot a score that you want to post for your handicap. Not necessarily when you're just out playing with your friends casually, especially if you don't have a match going on. Many of our leagues actually have their own rules. They can't use those scores to post for USGA handicap, but they will play by their own rules. They will use that rule, say, where you don't lose a ball and have to go back to the tee, you can just drop one, or they'll have special water hazard rules where you can drop on the other side of the water hazard on the maybe the green side, as opposed to having to keep dropping back on the tee side and having to keep hitting it over and over again. And then, the other factor too is check in the pro shop before you go out, because in many cases, and you might not know this if you're just coming out to play casually, but in many cases there are local rules that even the tournaments will put into play during the tournaments that are kind of an addendum to the USGA rules that are okay. They're actually legal even with the USGA. For example, John's staff will put the drop areas out there.
3 green.
Yes.
So perfect example.
Absolutely. We've got one of those holes with the environmental area, that environmentally sensitive area on that green 9, you can't go in there. So we have a drop area that's up by the green. So if you hit the ball into that environmental area, the rule is that you will take a drop up in the drop area and play your 3rd shot. If it was without that local rule, you would have to come all the way back to the tee and hit your 3rd shot. Okay, but because those drop areas are there, we've enacted that local rule. All of our leagues know of this. Any tournament that comes in, even our local PGA professionals that come in to play, they know this rule, and it's a rule that is in effect. So it's important to check and make sure that you know the local rules, so you're not, say, beating yourself up unnecessarily out there, making the game more difficult than it needs to be. Another popular one is stones in bunkers. Bunkers are sand traps, and regardless of what we try, there's always stones in there as we go to rake them. So if you've got a big stone in there, that wasn't the intention of you getting into that sand trap and having a stone next to your ball. You can move it. Although the rules of golf say that you can't, we have a local rule that says it's okay. And our leagues play by that. Again, our tournaments play by that. It's not done just at our golf course. It's done at many golf courses that will experience stones and rocks in those bunkers. So local rules like that, very important to know that your pro shop staff will know what they are. Sometimes they're on the scorecard. So take a look at that. If you really want to play by the USGA rules, make sure that you check out the local rules. And if not, and you're out there just playing for fun, enjoying a nice day, enjoying the company that you're with, don't feel that you're looked bad upon because you might not be following the USGA rules to a T, because we really want you out there having a good time and enjoying the sport the way that you want to. All right, well, John, I'd like to thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
It's
always good to talk about the golf course.
It is something that you and I are pretty passionate about, and we enjoy working together, I think, because that's something that we bring to the table at the Colonie Town Golf Course. I know you've been in this business for a long time.
36 years.
36 years, as I have. I actually grew up at the golf course working for Tom Gunning, who was the golf pro back in the 80s. And I was a kid spraying carts off there, and it's something that I've done all my life, and I really enjoy coming to work at a golf course, as I know you do. So that's why it's been a great conversation, and hopefully we'll have a great 2014.
We look forward to getting going as soon as the snow goes. So.
Yeah, I mean the weather can't be any worse, knock on wood, than it was in 2013. So we'll have a great year. We'll get open, and hopefully there'll be a lot of birdies out there for everybody, to experience this year.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, and hope you enjoyed we'll call it the Colonie Golf Show for this time. We'll see you soon. If you have any questions that you want to pass along to me that we can answer on a next show, please do so. You can email them to me at gebauern@colonie.org. That's my last name and first initial, GEBAUERN@colonie.org. That's also on our website, which is colonie.org/parks/golf. You can find it on there, and email me some questions. We'd love to answer them here on a show, or you can give us a call over at the golf course at 374-4181, and I'll answer them right there for you at that point. Or if you'd like to hear them answered on the show, we'll do that as well. So thanks again for being with us.